So it's great to have shutting. So cubicle rooms ever. In my office, there's no cubicles. It's crazy.
Now call to order the June 15th, 2023 meeting of the Salem Historic Landmarks Commission. Will the recorder please take roll call? Commissioner Kernan?
Here.
Commissioner Fuller? Here. Commissioner Anden?
Here.
Commissioner McLeod? Commissioner Morris? Here. Commissioner Hunts? Here. Commissioner Strauss?
Present.
And Commissioner Zimmerman? Here. We have quorum. Commission will now hear testimony from the public concerning items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here wishing to speak at this time? Don't see anybody. Seeing none, we will now consider the approval of the minutes from the May meeting. May I please have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from May 18th. Second.
Thank you. Commissioner Finbrook moves to approve the minutes and Commissioner Erdman. No, it was Commissioner Inman, excuse me. Seconds. Are there any corrections? All right. All those in favor of approving the minutes as listed, say aye. Aye. All those aye, all those opposed? Seeing none, they are approved. Thank you. And now we have public hearing. I will now open the public hearing for historic case review number HIS 23-05 for 456 and 466 Court Street Northeast. The applicant has requested that we continue this hearing to the next meeting to include additional changes. Is there anyone here representing the neighborhood association? I still don't see anybody. So now I will call for other testimony, and I don't think we have anybody. So let's see here. I will now call for a motion to continue the hearing.
I move to continue the hearing to our July meeting.
Is there a second? All right, Commissioner Potts seconds. We have a motion by Commissioner Timbrook and seconded by Commissioner Potts. Let's see. Stop this. Let's see. I will now call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion to continue the hearing to the next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, the motion passes. All those approved the motion and no dissenters. All right, we now go to the. Okay, well, I guess we'll add that to the agenda now. Our new member has arrived. And so we're going to change the agenda for you to do the oath of office for our new commissioner, Connie Straw.
Okay, if you'll just raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Connie Strong,
I, Connie Strong,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
and the laws of the United States of America
and the laws of the United States of America
and of the state of Oregon
and of the state of Oregon
and the city charter
and the city charter
and ordinances of the city of Salem,
and ordinances of the city of Salem,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
and that I will, to the best of my ability,
faithfully and lawfully perform the duties
faithfully and lawfully perform the duties
of Historic Landmarks Commissioner
of a Historic Landmarks Commissioner
for Salem
for Salem
during my continuance therein.
during my continuance therein.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right, we go down to our action items. The first item on our agenda tonight is the Salem Centennial sign. And Kimberly, can we have the staff presentation, please?
Thank you. Kimberly Fitzgerald, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Salem. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, okay. So at the May 18th Landmarks Commission meeting, we initiated our discussion of this, and Commissioner Strong, you weren't here, but I'll do my best to give a brief overview. The Landmarks Commission discussed 4 initial options to move forward with updating the Centennial sign. This sign was designed and constructed in 1959 as a joint project between the Marion County Historical Society, the Salem Chamber of Commerce, and the Marion County Centennial Commission. And this was part of Oregon's centennial celebration in 1959. The sign has been maintained by the City of Salem since 1960 and was restored in 2006 by the city and Salem Town volunteers. To give you a bit of sense about where it is, it's located on the east side of High Street on the bridge over Mill Creek, just south of where the road turns into Broadway Street Northeast. And there you can see just to the west is Boone's Treasury, if you're familiar with that McMinimans. So staff, there are 4 options to consider. Staff was asked to research a little bit more in depth about a couple of the options. And the first option was to refurbish the existing marker and replicate to the greatest degree possible the existing design and material, but updating the language so that it's reflective of the actual development of history over time in this location, including the indigenous story. So staff reached out to both C-Reach LLC and the Salem Sign Company to determine whether or not they would be able to refurbish the existing marker. The Salem Sign Co. stated that they would need to replace all of the existing boards due to their condition, but they would be able to replace them in kind. But they recommended putting polymetal overlay panels with the new language over the top. You can see the rendering that they put together there on the left side of your screen. And then C-Reach, they recommended something similar, although they suggested a 1/2-inch high pressure laminate panel, and they said that they could make that clear so that it would appear, so the wood planks could be revealed underneath. So I'm not entirely sure how that would look. They said they didn't have time to make a full rendering for us, but they said that they could make it look like carved wood, but it would weather better over time. So in terms of the budget for both, they both fall within generally the budget that we have available, which was good to hear. I only asked Salem Sign Co. for the larger sign. C-Reach can do 2 different sizes. So then I reached back out to the Oregon Travel Information Council to see if they would be able to work with us to put new language on the existing sign. And they said no, that they don't do that any longer. And they only are able to produce the standard panels in 2 sizes. And I did want to touch on some of their reasoning, because I think it came up last month in the discussions. I believe Commissioner Morris may have brought it up. This wasn't anything that the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde or the Siletz brought up, but some tribes in Eastern Oregon did state that they are triggered by the form and design of that original beaver board signage. And so they've been working to, the Oregon Travel Information Council has been trying to listen to that, and while also being sensitive to the history that this signage conveys over a long period of time in Oregon. So they're purposely trying not to keep those original ones. And they, again, have 2 sizes. You see examples of 2 larger ones, and then they have a smaller one that they can do. So public comment, you should have received on your desk there, public comments from Jim Shepke. And then we were not able to have our tribal roundtable this week because I'm on jury duty. It's why I'm coming to you via computer today. But I did reach out via phone, and they did both say that they still prefer the options they recommended the last time. So that would be option 1 or 2 for the Grand Ronde, and the selects still felt pretty strongly about option 2, primarily because of the network that OTIC offers. So the HLC alternatives, so there's 4 options. Option 1 is replace the existing sign, replicating the design and material, just updating it with new language. Option 2, work with the Oregon Travel Information Council to create a new site, sponsor a new site-specific marker. And option 3, Connie, I'm sorry, we didn't talk about this today, but that was to sponsor a new regional marker through the Oregon Travel Information Council. And that is not really site-specific, it's more general to the region. And then option 4, no action, leave the marker as it is. So I'm going to stop sharing so you guys can discuss.
Thank you, Kimberly. Are there any questions for staff?
I have one. In the consideration of the signs shape, you had mentioned that there were tribal entities in Eastern Oregon that were opposed to, and this is the clarification question, were opposed to the like original wooden board form A of the meter board, and would that imply then that they would be more open to a differently shaped structure? Is I guess the question that I have.
Yeah, that's correct. That's so the examples I shared with you, the Oregon Travel Information Council, they're still producing that wooden signboard, but it's a slightly different shape. So again, they are trying to be responsive to the concerns they heard.
Okay, so that means then that any wooden signage is, some wooden signage is okay, but specifically the older signage we were looking at, like the option 1 signage would not be considered okay.
Well, by the Travel Information Council, you're still free to make your own choice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Cool, thank you.
Commissioner Kraus?
To clarify on that as well, the sign that we have currently is not the same sign that was put up by the Oregon Travel Commission, if that's the right organization, correct? It's a different sign that was put up by like local organizations.
Correct. Yeah. So even though it looks like in fact, we thought it was a beaver board sign, which is what Oregon Travel Information Council, they manage that beaver board sign program because it has a beaver on it and it looks almost exactly like the one up at Shampooey used to look, which by the way has been replaced with a more narrow one now. Yeah, it's not in their inventory. It is not owned by the Oregon Travel Information Council. This one is currently owned by the city of Salem.
Okay, and just to be specific, it does look like the old beaver signs. It's not different sign. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? All right, seeing none, is there a motion that anyone wants to put forth on this?
Let's make a motion for option 2 with more just discussion.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. We have a motion from Commissioner Timbrook and a second from Commissioner Fuller. Commissioner Timbrook?
Well, I was not here last month, so it's still a little bit new to me. So I guess that's why I'm more interested in just the general overall discussion, especially between option 1 and option 2, so.
I would hold that, in the verbiage or the input that we've received from tribes so far, option 1 still seems to have some tribal opposition, if I'm not mistaken. In my consideration of option 2, I would posit that just because, and my consideration of option 2 over option 1, I would posit that just because the original sign is itself historic, is not qualifying reason enough in my mind to keep that original sign as close as possible to the original. We're talking about a memorialization of a historic event, not a historic structure in and of itself, not anything that is like in and of itself foundationally of its time. It's honestly, it's more akin to a statue than anything else, you know, and saying that we need to keep the original sign as close to the original, or the sign as close to the original as possible, because it is historic, is not unlike saying that we need to, you know, keep a southern state might say to keep a Confederate statue, because just because it was built in the 1930s and it is now historic does not mean that we need to keep the thing. It's advertising something that is against the more modern and inclusive and egalitarian focused sensibilities that we were trying to push for in Salem. So I think that option 2 really kind of summates that in a way that option 1 and option 3 do not.
Commissioner Goodman.
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Okay.
Kimberly, are we able to reach out to the Eastern Oregon tribes and hear from them regarding the shape of the sign?
Yeah, we can, but per LCIS, the three tribes that have an interest in Salem, I've reached out to. I haven't heard anything back from Warm Springs, but at your direction, I could do that, but I hesitate to do that because then it opens up a door that I'm a little concerned about opening up because well, you work with the tribes. I think because we have our tribal roundtable, that's the forum we use, and that's where I would want to bring this back. But I defer to you.
Okay, I mean, kind of going off of Commissioner Fuller, what he was saying about how if we are adjusting the sign because of its inaccuracies and disservice to preserving history, it would make sense that we want to think about what exactly the shape of the sign is doing too. And if we are hearing from, not from the direct source though, but if we are hearing that maybe the shape of the sign is a trigger, that's something we really want to maybe fix as well, because otherwise what we're doing is kind of a moot point. We're adjusting the language so it's more accurate, but keeping a shape or something else in the history that maybe we're not aware of. It's not really doing the justice. And Kimberly, I completely understand not wanting to bring more cooks to the kitchen. You know, I wonder though if maybe at the next meeting you can reach out to the other tribes in Oregon and just for the invites. I don't know. I can help you on that and work with you. Maybe it's a separate meeting, but
I can provide some feedback that I received from Beth, which might help clarify where the shape issue is coming from. So, and I can share a picture of the sign again, if that's helpful. But if you remember the round wooden posts on either side, they evoked the feeling of a fort, which is the specific issue that was very triggering for these tribes.
yeah. I didn't want to assume, but that would have been my guess. It was that,
Yeah.
because that's the point of the signs of that structure is to look like. So, but yeah, without getting too much further in the weeds. I can brainstorm with you more on some of that.
Commissioner Ponce.
Yes, just a couple thoughts there, and a question. The sign in singular issue right now, are there other signs that this decision and change might affect them? Changing the sign is changing the sign. Would there be the same? The second sign down. Other entity may closer to the original. So just if there are other signs, the discussion can be a little bit larger so that we capture, possibility as many as possible. Then the decision is kind of twofold. Sign, it's the shape, replacement, maintenance. And then the language is key. So, in the shape, is it big enough to include the language yet? With text that can be read. We heard some testimony. So that dictates a certain size of text. So if we it's just text, maybe that was key point for some folks. Kids.
Commissioner Strauss.
I have a question for you, Kimberly. We're not tied to keeping the design of the current sign if we go with option 1, correct? Since a lot of the boards would have to be replaced anyway, we could experiment maybe with doing a different shape of sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I think then my comment is that outside of the question of the shape of the sign, I think I'm more in favor of option 1 as opposed to option 2. Simply because I like the idea of keeping the content of the sign in-house, so to say. And I think also we have then a little bit more flexibility over the design that we choose if we go with option 1, maybe preserving like the beaver of the original sign to be part of the new sign or something like that, so that we can kind of get our own sort of control over what's going on that sign. So I think right now I'm not in favor of the motion.
Are there any other comments on the motion? Commissioner Morris.
So again, going back to what Commissioner Fuller was saying, I think the fact that this entire process is to change language to be more inclusive of restorative history. If we have one of the Confederated tribes saying that option 2 is their only selection, I think to me, the deference has to be to the tribes. It's literally, we're doing this only in favor of their history and to be more inclusive. So if they say that's the way it should be, my vote would be to follow their lead and not to, once again, marginalize their opinion by coming to a table without them present saying, we know better than you. So I'll be in favor of the motion.
Are there any other comments? Okay, I'm also in favor of the motion as well. I think if there's concern about, just the structure itself with the poles as something that's kind of regrettable for some of the folks, I think it's important to address that while we're also addressing the content as well. Because if there's something that one of the tribes has an issue with in terms of the design of it, we can change the content, but that look of it is still going to be there, and that's still going to be a sticking point going forward, even if we, altered the content of the sign. All right, so now we have the motion to go with option 2, supporting the new markers through the Oregon Travel Information Council, new design and material. Put forth by Commissioner Timbrook and seconded by Commissioner Fuller. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay, you say nay or aye?
Yeah. Commissioner Kirkman is opposed. And Commissioner Strauss, excuse me. The motion is approved. All right, now we move on to the discussion items tonight. And the first one we have is a special assessment for SA 23-01 455 4th Street Northeast. Kimberly? With the staff presentation.
Sorry about that. Yes, thank you. So for those of you that aren't familiar, I'm going to speak a little bit about Oregon Special Assessment Program. I think Commissioner Strong is familiar with it, having participated herself directly. So you have before you, you should have received in your packets an application that was submitted by Charles Weathers. This is for 455 Court Street. This was actually a case that the Landmarks Commission decided back in November of 2022. Here's where it's located. It's contributing to our downtown historic district. And a little bit about the special assessment program. In Oregon, owners of historic properties on the National Register of Historic Places are eligible for enrollment in this program, and it offers a specially assessed value, which is calculated by the county assessor for a 10-year benefit term. And the intent of this benefit is to encourage preservation by providing the owner with a way to make appropriate improvements to the property without being fully assessed on those improvements during this 10-year period. The application has to be submitted through the Oregon State Historic Preservation Office. This application has to include a detailed preservation plan, which describes the proposed rehabilitation and preservation work that the owner anticipates completing within this 10-year period. As I mentioned previously, the Landmarks Commission did review, do a historic design review back in November of 2022. And this review, the HLC approved a number of the items that you'll see in the preservation plan, including a proposal to reopen the formerly blocked windows, transoms, and removing non-historic awnings and replacing the non-original storefront. So just a few points I wanted to make. Salem is a certified local government, and you all are considered qualified as a Landmarks Commission, which is why the SHPO is asking for your review and comment. You should have a worksheet in your packet. I think there's a fillable PDF there, and you can review it within 4 areas, which include determining whether the proposed work ensures that the historic integrity of the building is maintained, that projects restoring character defining features are included, as well as ensuring the repair and maintenance of historic features are included. And then also just reviewing the proposed timeline and budget. So you'd need to return this worksheet on June 16th. I also just want to point out, which is tomorrow, I also just want to point out that this does not substitute for any local processes. So local land use and building permits are still required, and any historic design review that Mr. Weathers hasn't already completed would need to happen as well. And also in Salem, because we're a certified local government, local historic design review can substitute for a SHPO design review. So your choices are, you don't have to complete the evaluation if you don't want to. It's not a requirement, but if you did want to review it, I know that SHPO staff, Joy Sears, would really appreciate it. And you'd need to complete that worksheet and get it back to Zach by tomorrow. I'll stop sharing. Does anyone have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Zach? Commissioner.
Yes, my question is, on the previous design review, wasn't that a unanimous approval by the commission?
That there was a condition of I'm sorry, what was your question? Was there a condition?
Was the approval by the commission unanimous? My recollection is that it was.
Yes, I believe it was.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff? No.
Logistical question, sorry. We should email this back to you or fill it out now and hand it back?
There is a fillable PDF included in the email I sent out last week, so you can either fill that out. It's part of the entire packet, so that's a little bit annoying. I can send you just the form if you'd like. Or if you'd like, you can fill that out now, give it to me at the end of the meeting. You can fill it out at home, take a picture of it and send it to me, but please do not do that. But if you think that your preferred way of doing that, that's fine. So just as long as you get it back to me by tomorrow in whatever form, or your vision is not acceptable.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments for that? Oh,
I just have a dumb question. Is this the first phase?
Yes.
Okay,
That's not a dumb question. Only one familiar with the program would know. would know. Yes.
all right. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Zach, for the options to fill out the form for tomorrow. The next thing we have is the AINW history articles and mitigation for the North Campus. Kimberly.
Yeah, thank you. So this is another fun worksheet that you get to fill out if you so desire. I'm going to give you a little bit of background for those of you that weren't on the commission when this came through. So the Oregon State Hospital Historic District actually used to be much bigger than it is now. This is actually a plan of what it looked like when it was originally designated in 2008. There were 61 contributing resources on the site and just 6 non-contributing. In 2019, a new boundary was proposed because a significant number of resources have been demolished, and you can see the revised boundary here, now down to 36 contributing resources with 4 non-contributing. So additionally, an archaeological site was identified on the North Campus, and the property owners, so both DAS and the developer on this property have been coordinating with the Oregon State Historic Preservation Office to negotiate stipulations for mitigation of this adverse effect. And in this particular case, what's before you is part of that mitigation. So there are 2 articles which have been written by AINW. They've been hired by the developer to develop these historic articles for the Oregon Encyclopedia, as well as the newsletter, Current Archaeological Happenings in Oregon, or CAHO. Yeah. And so, CAHO, I said it wrong, CAHO. So just like the other, because we are a certified local government and you are a qualified Landmarks Commission, you're invited to review and comment on the article. There's a worksheet similar to the other one I just went over. And in this particular case, if you can complete a worksheet for each of the articles, they're very similar, but they're for different audiences. And generally, if you can look at whether or not a concise history is conveyed, and as well as the significance and context for the history of the district, check out their facts and sources and supporting material. And again, as with the other one, if you can return to Zach by tomorrow. So, and just like with the other one, you don't have to do it. It's not a requirement. But if you do, if you can get it to Zach by tomorrow, that would be great.
Thank you, Kimberly. Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Amy?
Yes, I have a question. With the significant demolitions on the site, has there been a reevaluation of National Register eligibility for the site?
Yes, that was also done in 2019, and it went back through the State Advisory Committee on Historic Preservation, and the boundary was adjusted and the nomination updated.
But what remains is still considered
Yes.
listed and eligible.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Are there any other questions? Commissioner Strauss?
The Oregon Encyclopedia entry, is this like aimed to be like an archaeological history of the campus, or is it the whole hospital?
I gotta give a disclaimer. Yeah, I'm on the editorial board of the Oregon Encyclopedia, and we have been needing an entry related to the entire hospital, the Oregon State Hospital. So, so the short answer to your question is that we did not request an archaeological entry just focused on the North Campus, but that's what was provided.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else care to comment? Commissioner Kerdeman?
Hey, Kimberly, I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around what the purpose of the history articles are. So I get them as being terms of mitigation, but
Yeah, here, so it's only one of the many stipulations that are mitigating for the adverse effect to both the loss of the structures and the adverse effect to the archaeological site on the North Campus. And if you bear with me, I was
gonna say, I wonder if just because I'm gonna have a hard time accepting this as complete standalone completion. So maybe if I saw what the other stipulations were in the mitigation, it might help.
Yeah, and
we, I feel like already just by skimming this, it's very
well. So you're wearing a different hat, Jessica, and I know because of your familiarity. Yeah, your role in this case is not to review whether the mitigation is sufficient. It's whether or not the history itself is adequate. And let me I'm pulling up some of our code relating to public historic mitigation so you can understand. And the MOA, the stipulations, that agreement is not with us. It's with the SHPO. So I can certainly request, I do have a copy of the MOA, but it's quite lengthy.
Yeah, that's okay. The main reason I was asking about the other stipulations is because just looking at this by itself and then the questions on the form, I'm like, is this sorry.
So you can see, so this is our code relating to public historic mitigation, and this was determined to be a level 3 adverse effect. And so the other, so looking at level 3, so it includes photo documentation, which they did before the buildings were demolished. ILS, including ILS level documentation. I'm not going to read all of it, but this piece of it is just a section of the education portion. So in this particular case, the other stipulations included working with the museum, the State Hospital Museum, to create a traveling exhibit and updating their website. So this is just a portion of a much larger.
Yeah. So I guess my next thing then is just again, I'm trying to convince my brain not to tear this up on because
Well, you're free to provide whatever comments you want on the article itself. Yeah. And I can certainly come back at a future meeting and request, I can bring the larger MOA and perhaps request someone from DAS or SHPO to come and speak to the overall mitigation.
I think I'll be able to just look at this and not worry about what else is being done.
Okay.
But my comments might be a lot, so just feel free to reach out to me if you're like, okay, Jessica, you're on the wrong track here.
They're good. So you know where they're going. They're going to go to Ariane W and then to Jessica Gabriel and Jamie French. So you know, you could just put your name on there and say, call me.
Right? Oh, it's Carmen. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff?
I have one.
Okay, Commissioner Fuller.
Apologies if you've already stated this, but what is the final end result plan for these articles? Is this going to be like published somewhere? Is it going to be like panels, interpretive panels somewhere? What's the final thing? Like, what are we reviewing this?
Yeah, so there's two end results. I'm going to say it wrong again, Jessica. CAHO, the CAHO newsletter. So that goes to professional archaeologists in a digital form. And I believe they also have their newsletters archived on their website, so you can go back and look at older ones. And then the Oregon Art Encyclopedia, that's that. So just so you know the process, it'll go through the SHPO review, but then it goes through our editorial board. So I'm just one of many people on the editorial board, and it will be vetted. And I can tell you right now that we've already had concerns about the narrow scope. So I don't think you need to solve that problem. That will be solved by the Oregon Encyclopedia editorial board. But, you know, I think we would welcome any insights or comments that you might have, because those will be forwarded to the editorial board. And then once it's finalized, you can go check when you get home. You can just look at the Oregon Encyclopedia. There's lots of entries on there.
Okay, cool. My primary concern was that this would be something that would not be publicly accessible, but if it's going on the Oregon Encyclopedia, then that relays that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other comments? Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kimberly. Next thing we have on our agenda is the work plan assignment updates. And I think that's another Kimberly.
Just real quick, I did send you all an email with the shortened version of just the form, and all of the boxes should be expandable. So as you're typing, it should just keep going. If you need the space, it should, the way I set it up, you can write a novel. I'm not suggesting that you do that, but you can do that.
Exactly.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, please, Kimberly.
Okay, so so I'm just going to do a really brief review. I know Commissioner Strong, you've joined us halfway through the year, and I can't remember, Chris, I feel like you've been here forever, but I don't know if you were here in January. Oh, well, I just imagined that you were. So this is our work plan. I know, I'm sorry, that's a terrible slide. I'm not going to make you look at it for very long. But we've got a lot of things that we've decided that we're going to do this year. I'm going to go through, I've kind of organized these by kind of what people have already signed up to do, and I'm going to kind of walk through them, and I'll leave you with the things that we still need folks to sign up to help with. So social media, that's Andy Zimmerman all the time, and perhaps Andy, you might want some assistance. I'll let you speak to that. Unless you're cool with just hanging on to this all on your own. You've been doing a great job. So we appreciate.
Yeah, for anybody who's got stuff, suggestions or content or something, you know, the more the merrier. That helps us get things out there.
Great. So maybe someone might want to consider helping with that. Commissioner Kurdeman has been a wonderful liaison to the Archaeology Roundtable. You really need to be an archaeologist to be on that. So I think Commissioner Kurdeman, you're stuck with that. Thank you for doing that. And these are okay. These are all from my notes, just so you know. I believe Zach took minutes, but I'm sorry, I didn't look at those. So the liaisons, I had 2 written down to the Culture and Heritage Forum. And that would be Commissioner Fuller and Commissioner Strauss. And that's to help later in the year with the development of our Cultural Heritage Strategic Master Plan. And we're also going to be working on a disaster plan for cultural organizations. And then historic celebrations, I feel like we already did all of those because that was mostly for Historic Preservation Month. But it's also for Archaeology Month, which is in the fall. And I had Commissioners Strauss, Zimmerman, Kurdeman, and Fuller on that. Moving on, supporting historic designations. I had Commissioner Strauss on that. I think that I was thinking mostly about like individual local noms, and I know that you've been helping with the Criterion Schoolhouse and that kind of thing. And then for the enforcement policy, I had Commissioner Ponce. I know that Commissioner Inman had helped with that last year, but I had put Commissioner Inman on coordinating education about Salem's landscape. So I think that for all of these, if I've got this wrong, please speak up. If these are not things you signed up for, you can certainly change your mind. And then the ones that we still need help with that I didn't have anybody's names next to, we have identified starting up a historic neighborhood day and homeowner forum. So those are 2 separate things. So working with neighborhood associations to establish and celebrate Historic Neighborhood Day, and then also coordinating a homeowner forum so homeowners can share resources and experience. And I think that forum was something we had thought about, and then COVID happened. So we weren't really sure how that was going to work. I think initially it was perceived as something in person, but then maybe we were thinking it could be something online. And then moving on, sponsoring workshops. So collaborating with other organizations, like I know the Criterion Schoolhouse, again, they're going to be doing a workshop this summer. We have some information about that, and anybody who wants to sign up to assist with that. And then we do need help with the KMUZ radio spots. Those are 6-minute spots. I think Andy's done a few, and I can't remember if anyone else has, but it's a lot of fun and it's not really hard, but we'd love to have more folks doing that. And Kirsten, I know, has done them. Oh, Kirsten. All right, so I think you all have on your desks the actual printouts. I'm going to stop sharing and let you guys chat.
How does everybody feel about adding to the, if they haven't been assigned any tasks, are there any that are of interest to folks to participate with or to sign up for?
I'd actually like to sign up for, you don't need help on this, but I'd like to sign up for number 5 as well.
Excellent, great. Commissioner Ponce.
Like to sign up for Same. Sign up. Yeah. Just
Thank you, Commissioner Timber.
I think I'd like to tag myself onto like 5, 6, and 7, and maybe with some assistance from Andy, I'd consider number 10.
Okay, I'd be happy to help. Thank you. Does anybody else want to comment? Commissioner Strong?
Since I'm not signed up for anything so far, I'd like to get some more information on numbers 8 and 9. I mean, those sound like things that Glenn and I talked about in years past, and I'd like to know, what the vision is for those.
Wonderful, thank you. All right, Commissioner Morris.
I definitely, 6 would fall in my wheelhouse, and I think, 9, there's some possibilities there. Maybe a slightly broader scope that I have in mind, but, both 6 and 9, I think I could maybe one of those.
Thank you, and I'm willing to do some more of the Salem history tidbits for KMUZ. I'm having a little bit more time now, things are kind of straightened out and leveled out a little bit, so I can certainly help and assist with a few of those to take some of that off of your plate, Kimberly.
Thank you. You could just read from your newspaper articles.
I know one of the things I've learned though from that is it's easier to read silently than read aloud sometimes with some of the stuff that you've written. And so I find myself, well, I'm gonna have to rewrite that because I get caught up, and it trips me up on a certain word, then I gotta start over to kind of make it sound smooth. To make it listenable for folks, but yeah, it's something that I've utilized, but yeah, I definitely can't read from. Go ahead.
I want to check in with Fred. So Fred, if these folks who have signed up for these work plan items want to get together on their own or communicate with each other via email, is that okay? Or under what what should they watch out for?
Well, just need to make sure that it's like a subcommittee and not reaching quorum, because then you had enough people that would be a quorum, and that would trigger a whole bunch of stuff that you don't trigger.
And how many is quorum?
5, sorry.
That's okay. Yeah, good. So with that in mind, those of you that I think maybe Zach, if you could, we could finalize a list and then email it out to folks so they all remember what they agreed to do. And then you are free to meet on your own outside of meeting times, as long as there aren't 5 of you.
I can send out that list. I do have one thing to add on, maybe. So with the decision we made for the Salem Centennial sign today, we will be establishing a committee to discuss the language, and we will probably have a commissioner on the committee, correct?
Yes, my goodness. Thank you for remembering. Yes, please. We can at least one, but we could accommodate 2.
Happy to be on that committee.
Great.
Do you need it?
That's all I had. We're ready to move on if you are.
All right. Thank you, Zach. Looks like the next thing is the newsletter check-in, so back to Zach.
So this one I have to do from here. Newsletter, I received an article. So if anyone else who's writing an article wants to get that to me, my plan is to publish it next Friday. So I would like for that, if you could get it to me tomorrow, that's great. But if not, maybe Wednesday at the latest. So I can get that published on Friday. The theme is the theme. I feel like we talked about our fall theme, but I don't remember now. But we don't have to decide that right now. We could, in years past, we've done, the summer issue has been subjects of the photo contest, so we could do that for the fall issue if we'd like. Or we can, it's your newsletter, so you can decide whatever you want. But if anyone does have any things that they'd like to pursue for the fall newsletter, now would be a great time to share that.
I think we should definitely include the photos. It's nice to be able to feature those.
And so I will come back next meeting with a list of all of the locations of the photos, including the ones that did not win, so that you can think about what you might like to remark. Speaking of the photos, we did meet, we've taken photos with the winners receiving their awards for all the photos. And one of them was talking about doing a potential nomination for the Inglewood Forest Park. That could become a tough. But that's all I've got for the newsletter, I think.
Thanks, Zach. I'll have a call to you probably by next week. I'm still kind of figuring out what I want to write. Okay, now it's back to Kimberly for our Historic Preservation Officer report.
I just have a few things to share happening at the state level. So DLCD reached out and requested that I come and do a presentation to their Goal 5 cultural areas tribal work group. So that's all 9 tribes. Hey, Jessica, I could just ask them when I'm there about the sun. They'll all be there. But they've all of them had really wonderful things to say about Salem's program, in particular, how we've incorporated archaeology and archaeological compliance into our local process. And actually, the tribes have asked the legislature, and now DLCD is looking at initiating some rulemaking, which will then be effective statewide to require all local jurisdictions to do what we do. So isn't that cool? So anyway, I'm going to go talk to them. And then something to just be aware of, the legislature is considering a bill, House Bill 3414, to address the homeless crisis, the housing crisis in Oregon. And if you are interested in learning more about how that might impact historic properties, please just visit Restore Oregon's website. We won't take action as a commission, but you are free to take action as individuals. That's all I have.
Does anybody else have anything this evening before we wrap it up?
I have a quick question for Kimberly. Are any of the changes that are going to be being applied July 1st, is it going to affect anything in our historic work plan as far as archaeology stuff? I don't think it does.
Yeah,
but
that's a really good. Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm actually doing some training with our project managers, our in particular, our public works program managers and parks program managers. And the key areas that are going to be impacted really come down to the requirement that pretty much any work within our high probability archaeological zone should get an archaeology permit. And that's due to the change in definition of an archaeological site. And so it's really just forcing folks to plan ahead a little bit more. We're in really good shape actually, because we already do that because of the process that we put in place a couple of years ago. So it's not a huge lift. I think it's going to be a bit, I think the challenge honestly is statewide. I'm getting a lot of calls from other jurisdictions who are kind of freaking out. So yeah, I think we'll be okay. It's not going to really impact anything, but it will impact, I think, on a big scale around the state.
cool, as long as we're good.
Yeah, we're good. I think we're good. Yeah.
Thank you, Kimberly. Does anybody else have anything for Kimberly or for the good of the order this evening before we wrap it up? All right, everybody, thank you. This meeting is adjourned.
Yay, bye, everyone.